We think we can do characters now. We did a dragon last year. Oh my god, it's amazing. We have to work on it, but the budget's terrible. Press render, wait 10 minutes and go, oh, that's rubbish. How the studios run where they're like thousands of people just blows my mind, honestly. But nobody in their right mind would want to shut down a studio made in Blender. Like, ooh, yeah, let's email this person. It's a no-brainer instantly if you saved like £1 million on software.
Hello, everyone. My name is DJ, and this is Subsurface Talks, the podcast where we talk about CG, animation, 3D graphics, the meaning of life, you name it. And today I'm happy to have Mr. Emlyn Davies from Cardiff, from Bomper Studio.
Hello, nice to meet you.
So, Emlyn, can you tell us a little bit about what Bomper Studio is, what you do?
We're a CG creative production studio based in Caerphilly in South Wales, which is like sort of 20 minutes away from Cardiff. We've been going now about 10 years, and we create everything from CG visuals that go onto pack designs and key visuals for advertising, and then we also do animations. So all the way up to character animations for game studios, for TV commercials. So it's quite a big breadth of work that we do.
Yeah, that's the impression I got when I looked at your webpage, that you are kind of like very diverse. One of the things that really struck me was, and probably we'll be talking about this in the show a little bit more, was the Foo Fighters videos that you did, like two of them. So it's not a very common thing for an animation studio to have in the portfolio. And I'm also a fan of Foo Fighters myself, so this is really exciting for me to be able to talk about this and have a little peep behind the scenes of such work. Which is always curious, because when you get comments under a video on YouTube, for example, like people assume that Foo Fighters have made a video or something like that. They kind of assume that it's a Foo Fighters video, and really it's like the creatives that did the video for Foo Fighters. Like they did the song, and the video is like. So the creators that do the visuals are often kind of like less celebrated and remain unknown, so to speak.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. They've posted out, our work and stuff, and they've credited us as well. So, yeah, we've been very fortunate. They've been really good to work with, which is nice.
Okay, so maybe let's go to the very beginning, but because you said you were running for like 10 years with Bomper Studio, like what's your origin story? I'm always curious what gets people into this kind of creative business. Like it's not a common career strategy to become an animator or create things like that.
Well, it's a bit of a strange start, because when I went to university, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. So did like a foundation year, did lots of different arts. Really, really loved animation, but didn't think I was good enough. Was good at doing product design, so did product design through university. Got really lucky, won a competition, and Cadbury, the chocolate maker, they saw my work and sort of like asked me to go for an interview. So when I came out of uni, I was quite lucky that I managed to get a job with them. Worked for them for 10 years. I learned so much. The studio is just amazing. I think it's about 60 people in total when I first went there. And it was predominantly kind of traditional artists. They were using digital, platforms, but they were all sort of digital painters and traditional painters and stuff. And it was amazing. You had photographers. So I learned so much about how to create an image. And that's where I kind of got my really good foundations in doing visuals. And then, about 10 years ago, moved back down to South Wales and set up Bomper, because essentially there wasn't any kind of job for me in this area. I had to move back due to family reasons. My mother was unwell. And I realized like there was just no work for the kind of stuff that I was doing. It was really limited. So I thought, well, took a big risk and put all of our life savings into starting the studio. And just started in you call them like a business incubation center. So it'd be like a shared desk, a shared space. It was just me initially. My wife was the silent partner at the time, but she was working as a nurse. She was the one earning the money, and I was kind of burning through it really quickly, trying to figure out how to build a studio. And then, over the 10 years, we've kind of scaled organically, and we're still independent, so we don't have any external investors So we're quite fortunate, and we can pick and choose the work we want to do. Obviously, there's sometimes you have to do, the work to pay the bills. But we've been fortunate that we've managed to had amazing projects as well through that 10 years.
The funny thing is that you started with a chocolate company, so it kind of like brings me, the Willy Wonka style story to that.
Yeah. And chocolate is really hard to visualize. To get it right, it's really hard. There's like, yeah, there's things you got to hit, otherwise it can look shit. Honestly, it can look terrible.
It's too close to this. Exactly. How to
That's the problem.
differentiate.
It can, yeah, well, you can, yeah, it can look really bad very quickly. So you learn a lot. And like I said, working with those traditional artists, working with those photographers, and then just learning the ropes. Because I went in there as a junior, as a graduate. So yeah, I just went in and so I want to learn everything I possibly can. And it was the same the other way as well, because the guys there were like, well, okay, well, what is this new 3D thing? Like, why, can you show me some of this stuff? It was an amazing studio to kind of learn.
So in your studio, what's kind of like the pipeline that you're using? That the software?
We use loads of things. Originally, our main backbone was Cinema 4D, because that's where I'd learnt on, and that's what we were using at Cadbury, and that's where I'd had like about 15 years experience with it. We'd done some of our early stuff, character animations in it, and it was really difficult. It was quite hard to do characters in it. One, it was just because it was hard to find talented animators, and then riggers, and it was just like there was such a small pool of people that were using it. So then we made the decision to move to Maya to do any character work. So that's what we use now. But yeah, we use Houdini for obviously simulations, and then we still go back into cinema. We use that for most of the time as lighting and rendering, because we know it hooks up really well with Redshift. So we use Redshift for any of the bigger animations because it's more stable. And then for kind of visuals, we use Octane because we've got a lot of GPU power in the studio. So it's amazing to be able to get out visuals and to be able to kind of art direct and light things almost in real time, but have that then really good high end render quality as well to push out. So yeah, that's our pipeline.
Picking the right tool for the right job.
Yes.
Cinema 4D is like very much attached to motion graphics and product visualization as well, and it's not like the tool for character animation, as you said.
No, it's not. It had, yeah, we haven't used it in a few years, but yeah, it had like some pitfalls that were really hard to work with. Well, they couldn't work with like more than like 3 or 4 characters in the scene, and then it started to bog down and stuff like that. So that's why we switched over. And the biggest reason was just being able to find animators and riggers, and that was really hard trying to find it because it's such a niche thing in Cinema 4D. But second we went to Maya, we had a huge pool of resource to be able to kind of tap into if we needed them. And also we've started using Blender now. So the last sort of 2 years we have been testing out Blender for various projects.
Yeah, that's interesting because it seems like studios are kind of looking into Blender sometimes, and it has some issues of its own. Like, I'm bringing this up because the podcast up till now was kind of a little bit Blender centric because I'm a Blender user myself, and
Yeah.
probably the easiest contacts for me are from the Blender community. But I really wanted to have the podcast focus more about the creative work, and like the tools are just a means to get there,
Exactly.
But I think
Exactly.
we're kind of all artists. Like probably most of the audience of the podcast is also interested in 3D in some way, so we kind of tend to focus on the tools. But let me then quickly maybe link it to your work, because I've seen that one of the animations that you did was called Coffe Run, which I found funny because there's one animation called the same that was done by the Blender studio, Coffe Run.
Yeah.
Have you seen this one?
I think ours was first. Just putting that out there. No,
really
yeah.
funny.
So that one, the reason we did that was because I think it was in 2018. I think it was, or 19. Like I said, we were doing a lot of kind of motion graphics. We were doing a lot of kind of like quite not linear, but they were more kind of product visual launches, things like that. They were a lot more kind of simple animations, and then we'd have, say, maybe particles and physics and all that kind of stuff. But we really wanted to look at how could we do a character pipeline. So this is when we set a task for the studios. Like, right, okay, well, let's do something in house. Let's do a short form piece. How can we minimize the number of characters, but how can we do it to a style that we want to try out, which was the sort of stretch and squash and all the kind of crazy smears and lots of movement. And so how can we achieve this in Cinema 4D? Because again, like I said at the time, there wasn't much around that was using it, and we didn't know the pipeline, and we didn't know the processes needed. So yeah, I think we spent in total probably about 6 months on that, but we had like I think towards the end we just blocked out a solid 2 months to get that finished. But yeah, and it cost a lot of money because obviously we weren't getting any money for it, so nobody was paying for it, and we were just paying for it in house. And obviously we were also then not doing work as well because we were concentrating on it. So yeah, it cost us quite a lot of money. But we were bringing in flying in freelancers from Canada. We brought in Gene Magtoto, who was the rigger on it. We brought in Guy Aberhart and a few other people to look, just go over the tools and how we were going to be able to animate these characters. And so that was yeah, that was just like a fact finding mission, just to research how we're going to be able to build this character pipeline. But where it paid dividends was later on. We not long after we posted that, we then started to pitch on jobs that had characters in them, because we thought, okay, well, we think we can do characters now. And then we pitched for a Sony job, which was with Tyler Childers, the country artist, the American country artist. And yeah, they loved the short. They realized that we could do it. So yeah, they kind of like pushed the green light, and we managed to win that job, and that was an amazing job to work on. That was our first character piece, and still one of my favorites. It was really hard. It was a hard project because we were trying to do it in Cinema 4D. We rendered in Octane, which was like, it was losing memory in certain areas, so like the rendering hours would just like rack up really quickly once we had big scenes. And so yeah, we learned so much on that project, but it was a tough one, but also one of my favorites.
Interesting, like seeing that kind of like jumping into sort of like the personal project of yours, like leads to opening up doors for stuff. Like it's always like a struggle for artists, like for studios probably even more, because it's even more about money and managing time and
Yeah,
money and
it's about
resources.
trust. It's about trust. It's the same with anything. Any relationship you start is all about trust. So if somebody's an advertiser is going to come to you and go, right, I've got £100,000 budget, they need to trust that you can deliver that. The problem we were running into at the very start when we started the studio is that you just don't have those credentials. So it's really hard if they go, oh, can you do a car advert? And they're like, well, no, but we've done a million Hoovers, or we've done a million kind of toothbrushes. It's a product. It's exactly the same thing. It's just not. And you're trying to show those credentials, and until you've got them, then it's really hard to trust that person that they're going to deliver. And obviously, if you've got really big budgets, then it's even harder. So you've got to then really kind of convince them that you can be able to deliver these projects. And that's all it's about. And it's just a tough process. It takes a long time to build that portfolio, to be able to show the work. And yeah, clients will only kind of trust you if they've seen something in a portfolio that they think is close to what they want.
One of the main questions that I wanted to ask you in the podcast is how do you how do one, a studio or an artist, land a job making a Foo Fighters video, which was a question I already asked my previous guest who did a video for Korn, and his answer was like very simple, like they found me on Instagram, because he had like
Yeah.
as you said, like kind of like a body of work of his own style, and they wanted this particular style for their video. So the company that did the video for Korn, they kind of contact them to him. So I wonder what was the story behind getting a video for Foo Fighters made.
It was, so the process I just explained. So like I said, we did our in-house short. That cost a lot of money. And by the time we did the Tyler Childers one, Tyler is part of the Sony label. Foo Fighters are part of the Sony label as well. So they'd seen our work, and just had one of those kind of proper rock star moments where the label had just emailed. I think it was Foo Fighters in the title, and then in the body it was just like, call me. And that was it. That's how we got it. But it was from, obviously they could see that we delivered the Tyler Childers project, so that's where they're like, okay, can you do this? And it was at the time where it was just a crazy deadline. We were in the pandemic. They'd recorded some video, but David had this idea. So this was for No Son of Mine. He'd had this idea where he wanted to show this person going on a night of debauchery, and then at the very end you find out that he's a priest or a vicar. So yeah, and they wanted to show that, but it was just such a tight deadline because they'd have everything they'd only recorded in the studio, but they just didn't have obviously nobody could go out and actually film anything. So that's why they turned then to animation and just reached out to us.
So kind of like a coincidence of events with the pandemic and stuff. But as you mentioned, it was kind of like a domino effect of some stuff that you already did, and kind of it went on
Yeah.
there through a mysterious network.
Yeah, it's exactly like I said. Us doing our in-house short, showing that we can do something, and then putting it out there, and then people seeing it. And we still get people messaging. I still get people messaging today, and it's been what, like 5, 6 years since we put it out. Somebody asked us if they could use it the other day for some kind of advert. So whatever you put out there, you need to make sure that you do it the highest quality you can do it, and put it out. Then you never know who's going to see it and who's going to see your work. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you put it. So like we've had people come from some random places that they'd seen our work somewhere, or they'd spoken to somebody and then saw it, and then like you said, it's that domino effect.
So let me dive a little bit deeper into that Foo Fighters video. Like you mentioned, the first one you did was the No Son of Mine.
Hmm.
It's got a vibe of this kind of flat images, like a comic book animation, I'd say, or something. It's hard to describe it, like talking
Yeah.
about visuals. But I wonder what was the techniques that were used to achieve that video.
So yeah, it's a kind of wood block is the kind of process. So like when you wood block print,
Hmm.
so you carve out the wood block and then you print with that. So that's where that came from, and that came from an amazing artist that we'd found. Um, what was it on? I think it was on Sketchfab. We were just looking at it, and then yeah, we'd seen this artist that just stood out. And we were like, oh my god, this looks really cool. Is this something we could potentially use? So reach out to Thomas. I think it's Thomas Shahan was is his name, and he's an American artist. And we were just, oh, I love this work. This would fit in, tie in with this kind of like film noir that we were going for. And the reason we picked the choices were because one, we just had limited time. I think we had like a 3 week turnaround, maybe a 4 week turnaround. So we were like, okay, how are we going to be able to tell this story in a way that is like really cool? It's a dark story, and also how can we obviously physically get it done in this time? So that's when we came up with this kind of like 2D film noir woodblock kind of idea, and it's like, well, the good thing about that is that we could hide lots of mistakes. So if somebody's foot goes through a floor, you're probably very unlikely to see it. We could get away with a lot of things really quickly, so we could be really kind of efficient with it. So and then obviously then we decided to use some of their footage in between, to segment it. So again, we were just looking at ways of how we can condense this down and get it done in sort of like 3 week turnaround.
It came out pretty good, I'd say. I wouldn't I wouldn't have thought that it's such a quick job.
Yeah, yeah,
And then it led to the next video that you did for them, I guess, because
yeah.
they were satisfied, right? This one is like a really interesting visually, I'd say. It's for chasing birds.
Yes, and they just again they'd reached out. Dave really loves kind of yellow submarine beetles. They wanted to show sort of psychedelia, but without any drug taking. So we were like, okay, how the hell are we going to do this? So we came up with this idea that okay, well the band just kind of like wake up one morning dehydrated in a desert. So then that's why they're seeing all these kind of trippy hallucinations. And then throughout the video, there's just callbacks to other videos and other bits. So if you're a fan, you should be able to like spot the little kind of Easter eggs in there. Hopefully.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of these, and I instantly got the Beatles vibe and like the psychedelia from the visuals. They were
Mm,
really nicely done. And I was wondering about the technology that was used. Like it seems like a 3D with cell shading or some
yeah, it
things
is.
like
Yeah,
that. But
yeah. So again, that was done. I think we did that in Cinema 4D, and we used the standard shading, cell shading in that. I think we tried loads of different options for that. We wanted to get rid of the key lines, but the key lines really helped to kind of like focus the characters and kind of help them stand off. So yeah, it was. I'm sure it was Cinema 4D, and it was either standard render. It might have been Arnold. I can't remember now. It was a while back, but it might have been Arnold that we used on that because the cell shading stuff was really good with Arnold.
hmm. So let's talk a bit about the story of the video. Like I was mentioning that people assume that like a video is like a video of the band, so they are kind of like authoring the video in a way. I was wondering about how the story developed of the video, because like the choice of the visuals is quite obvious for me because the song itself has like the Beatles vibes. like a lot of
Yeah,
Beatles vibes in it.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's completely kind of away from obviously what, if you think of Foo Fighters, you think of like hard rock. It's the quick songs, the up tempo stuff. Where this is a lot more mellow, a lot more kind of chilled out. So we were like, okay, how do we hit those design cues for this kind of psychedelia, but again without showing any drug taking, without the band doing anything too lewd or weird, or so. Yeah, that was the idea when we come up with them being in the desert. It was like, okay, that's really good. So we can then start. So maybe like desert animals, but just being weird, just like the kind of weird versions of them. Um, and then yeah, just like I said, with these harkbacks to like other videos and trying to tie those in and then make it somehow work together was quite nice. So it took a bit of time to work that out, and we pitched the idea back to them and said, this is what we think of doing, and yeah, they just went for it, which was great. And they were pretty hands off, which was really good. So they were like, "But this is what I want. You guys know what you're doing. You just go and do it." And then we were just going back and forth. They had like minimal input, which is crazy, really. So yeah, it was a lot of kind of faith, which was brilliant.
it's always nice to hear like when someone believes in the artist doing their work, kind of like Foo Fighters doing their thing with the rock song, and you are doing the visuals because you're great at doing that. I was wondering about these weird effects that you have with the characters, like some smears, and doing that in 3D is like not an obvious thing. It's kind of like more from the 2D animation world,
Yeah.
these kind of drawn effects. So I wonder how you achieve these.
Yeah, well, like I said, with the Coffe Run, that was part of the kind of learning curve. With that was that we wanted to do these smears and do these, how are we going to achieve it? So again, it was just the same with this. It was just looking at how we build the rigs and how we can distort them and do various things with them. How can we tie them all together from one scene to another? Um, yeah, it's tricky, it's complicated, but it's mainly down to the rigs. The rigs were really good, and then yeah, just figuring out we were breaking them up. I can't remember now off the top of my head how we were doing it, but I'm sure we have breakdowns on our website.
I will link to that like in the show notes so people can like see the visuals, because always like talking about visuals on a podcast is it's always hard
Yeah, it's
because
really difficult,
it's
isn't
like a
it?
totally different medium, and you have to really see that to understand it.
Yeah.
But I guess it's always a different perspective, and there's what's interesting for me is that there's people behind it and the story behind everything that's created, and that gives like a different perspective for the whole creative process.
hmm
I wanted to ask about the hardest project that you ever did in Bomper Studio. Like, what was the hardest one?
I think is the Tyler one was hard. Like I said, that was our first proper kind of commercial character. So the Coffee Run was really difficult because it was like, well, we're trying to figure this out. How do we do it? And trying to get a steer on that one. But the Tyler one was really hard because we had deadlines. It was different with this. You're in-house short and you're doing it. It's hard to manage an in-house kind of project because you set these kind of arbitrary deadlines, and they then obviously you just don't hit them, or you push the scope of the project and it goes kind of like originally Coffee Run should have been 30 seconds and ended up being 2 minutes. You can't help yourself. Being an artist, you kind of just build on it. You can't help. Whereas when you've got a commercial job, there is a cutoff point. There is certain things you've got to hit, milestones you've got to hit to make sure that you can deliver on that time. So that was one of the hardest ones, but also, like I said, we learned a lot, and it was one of the ones that stands out that we enjoyed working on as well. So yeah, there's that one, and I'm trying to think. There's been other jobs. Volvo was a really tough job, just because the amount of assets and the amount of work that we had to get through. Again, because you've got deadlines. Deadlines change projects massively. If you've got like 3 weeks to do something compared to 3 months, then yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, so let me ask you about you did the Coffee Run, which was like kind of like your aspirational project, like you wanted to test yourself and
hmm
go into the area that you haven't yet done. So, what would be like the dream project that you would love to create? Like we have a studio in Poland, for example, who did like a lot of commercials, and recently, like for a few years, they've been doing like a full feature animation movie from
Yeah.
a comic book that they love, and it's going to be out in the cinema this autumn. It was already like premiered in Annecy.
Who's the studio?
It's Human from
Oh,
Warsaw.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
They did like something about I think it's called Diplodocus. Generally, like a children animation made out of a comic book that's kind of like a little bit weird, and it's definitely like a dream project of theirs, like a very personal one. and very resource intensive, I guess. Making a feature animation, that's a heavy task to lift. So I wonder if you have these kind of dream projects.
We do, we do have aspirations of doing long format. So obviously all the stuff that we do is commercial, is short form. We do have aspirations for the long form stuff, which we've had amazing support from Welsh government, and which is part of like the Creative Wales, and they've given us some development money, and we're currently working on a. It was initially a TV series, but it's potentially now going to be condensed into a feature, and that's covering kind of like Welsh folklore, but it's kind of like a fantasy element to it. And then also we've had some further development money to create a TV series. So this is a much more adult kind of sort of comedy. So those are the things we're working on in the background. But yeah, these things take years. That they, if you get something made in 5 years, you're doing extremely well.
5 years is like how much I think recently Southern Shotty, an artist doing Blender stuff on YouTube as well, and he did like a personal short animation. I think it took him 5 years to complete the project, but a one man army, so to speak. So it's even more difficult than a studio.
Yeah, and it's the same with us. We have to balance things as well. So we have to do the commercial stuff to make sure that we're still paying the bills and cash flow and all that stuff. But also you want to be able to try and develop it so that you can pitch your ideas to commissioners and to the streamers and broadcasters. And so yeah, we're early in that field at the minute. So we've only been about a year into that. Still trying to understand how that kind of business model works as well, because it's completely different to what we're used to. We used to clients just obviously come in and having budgets and having a vague idea of what they need us to produce, or they come to us with a rough outline. Whereas pitching a feature film or a TV series, it's the complete opposite end. You've got to go there with a really good idea, pitch Bible, and just go, well, this is our idea. Will you please give us some money? And then you've got to go and find money in various places or various territories. So it's a completely different business model. So we're still kind of learning the ropes with that at the minute.
Yeah, I guess it's like a little bit more like a startup trying to find financing
Yeah,
for
exactly the
venture
same.
capital or something.
Yeah, I've got this brilliant idea. You need to invest in it, and it's completely different to what I'm used to.
Yeah, and I'm wondering about this tension between your own ambitions and projects and the things that you would love to do and the commercial work that you have to do to like pay the bills. And do you find it helpful to have that kind of like the lessons learned from the commercial projects, that there are deadlines, as you mentioned? It's a very hard limitation for your creative work, but it also sometimes constraints really help to get things done and push
Hmm.
it in a specific direction. And as you mentioned, like with personal projects, is usually the problem that you as an artist have like much ambition, always changing the idea, polishing it up, and never really finishing it. Like, do you find it helpful to learn from the commercial work?
Yeah. Well, that's how we've learned everything. That's the way our stuff looks is because it's due to the commercial side. It's due to us kind of pushing and our visual style in that. As an artist, you really should set those boundaries and set out sort of timelines, because it is critical. Sometimes when you rush to make a decision, sometimes you make the right decision. It's almost like a gut feeling, and you make it, you do it, and then it's almost like a clearer thought. And then it's I don't know. It's sometimes you get a better end product, and obviously sometimes if you're too rushed, then you can make mistakes, and it compounds itself, and it's even worse. So it is tough, but definitely trying to get those boundaries in does help, because as an artist, like you said, when we worked on Coffe Run, we were trying to like do it in between jobs, and then it's like, okay, what did we do last? Well, where are we with this bit? And then by the time you kind of figured out where we are and like what's the next steps, some other job would come in, and you're like, okay, well, we've got to jump over here now, and then you would constantly just get pulled back and forth, and it was just takes time then, and it takes more resource, kind of like trying to remember what the hell did we did last time than just doing it. So that's why we took that decision. Is that right? Well, we've got 2 months, maybe 3 months, where we just going to shut down, and then we'll just concentrate on that, and then hopefully get it over the line.
That's I guess like the life teaching you the lessons, and if you learn to apply it, um, that's even greater. And you mentioned that do you have the support for this kind of like more experimental project, like you have the support from the government? And
Hmm.
I was wondering, because maybe it's like a coincidence. Like the first guest on this podcast was from Wales, and I kind of like I'm seeing Welsh people in the creative space, like a lot of studios, a lot of people there. Like it seems like a really like a hive of bees, like working on right there. Maybe it's just like some kind of like perspective that I maybe focused on Wales for now. Like it even inspired one of my personal projects recently. I got something about the Welsh dragon, and it's funny because I'm based in Poland, and we kind of like we're fighting for the Euro, like in a football match,
Yeah,
Wales
yeah,
versus Poland. And
yeah. Let's not talk about the football.
let's keep the football. I just want to mention that Welsh connection, and I was wondering about this community in Wales, like the creative community. Like, is there like a lot of
It's very small. It's like I said, when I came back to Wales, there were only a few studios. They're quite small. They're not that, we are a small nation. But the good thing is, over the last couple of years, we used to it probably in about, I don't know, about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, we had a really kind of strong animation industry. We were doing a lot for TV, and we had a really strong industry back then, and it kind of faded out and almost fell off a cliff very very quickly. And then we've not had that much in the last sort of 20 years, and it's starting to build up now. It's good to see, studios, local studios like Clothcat and Bumpy Box. Obviously, you had Chris on your first podcast, who's a superstar. And yeah, like I said, we're a small nation, so I think we all know each other. It's we are competing against the rest of the UK, who have we have massive like Ardman is literally just across the bridge from us. You got then like the likes of Blue Zoo and Axis and these huge studios who are producing amazing quality work. So it kind of pulls us up as well. It makes us kind of like try and push to be better. But yeah, and it's good that like I said, the Welsh government they've had a really good strategy with filming. So lots of amazing programs have been filmed in Wales recently. House of the Dragons was the latest one. So they've got a really good strategy when they've been bringing in that kind of work. And now they've changed kind of tack. Their kind of focus has moved towards animation and games. So that's probably one of the reasons why it's starting to see a little bit more of our stuff, because they're starting to be seen in places like Annecy. They're going to Annecy. We were at CMC yesterday, and yeah, so I think it's just that going out there and promoting Wales as well. And obviously Ryan Reynolds does pretty well for promoting Wales and his Wrexham shows, and it's so yeah, I think it's just a good time for us to be out there promoting ourselves.
that's really good. Like you mentioned that it's a small community, but from what you said, it feels like it's at least it's kind of like joining together, like to
Mm.
create like a force, like a joint force of making
Assembling
like
like
a.
a giant robot, yeah, to take over the world, hopefully.
Mhm. Yeah. You mentioned that you also like do a little bit of an animation for games, and I was wondering about this because it seems like a different world, animating for games and animating for commercials or feature films. What's the biggest difference in this?
Well, we've only done a little bit for games, but most of the stuff that we do for games it's usually advertising. So that's the stuff that we do. We did a lot of work with Big Fish, who are a North American game developer, on their Evermerge brand. And yeah, it was just a case of they'd have sort of 15 seconds of adverts in between, obviously these games that they push out on other platforms, and you just had to tell a story really quickly. So it was like, okay, how can we get this done in sort of 30 days with these? They wanted quite a high end kind of look as well. So it's like a Clash of Clans kind of, it's quite high quality work. So yeah, they were tough to turn around, but they look really polished, and they stand out, which is great. And that's what the client wanted. But we haven't done a lot for actual games, so we haven't done much for like in-game gameplay kind of animation. If that's what you're asking, sorry.
Yeah, so just testing the waters. What were your experiences? Because yeah, this these are like two different worlds, I guess, like the different approach to animation itself. But
Hmm.
then I'm feeling like the more the more technology develops, like the more these worlds kind of like blend together or like intersect, like the movie making. For example, like the Unreal Engine is like a thing that it's developed for games, and right now it's like being used in movie production.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of like the tools used for making games are now like filmmakers tools as well. I
Yeah,
wonder if you
yeah.
ever used Unreal.
We did a recent short animation again, so we wanted to figure out that pipeline. So how does Blender work with Unreal? So that was the kind of key kind of learning that we wanted to get in that project. And so I put it out to the team, put the brief out, and said, okay, somebody come back with an idea. A short animation. We only need this to be like 30 seconds, and then put it out. And Bianca, our animator, pitched an idea about this kind of service robot that's kind of like towards the end of its life, and it comes into this laundrette and sits down, and it's doing this kind of almost like its last chore. And I was like, okay, cool, that's something we can go with and work out. So we brought in Chris, who helped out on rigging the robot with Bianca, and then that was done in Blender, and then it was all imported into Unreal. And then it was all set up in there with light and stuff. And that was like, yeah, it was really fun to be able to work on it and have people in the same scene, lighting and moving stuff. And then almost having, when we're doing dailies and kind of reviews and feedback, the team can be in there and just start walking through and showing you, like, okay, so it comes here and I'm thinking of shooting it from this bit to this bit. And you could almost do real time kind of camera moves and kind of almost editing. That was like quite fun to play with, and obviously moving lights around and almost seeing instantly the kind of effects that he was given. It was really cool to have. I'm used to those days when I started, you'd set a scene up, press render, wait 10 minutes and go, oh, that's rubbish. Okay, move that light there, and then wait 10 minutes, move that light there. And that's like, to now where we are, where you can move a light around, it's almost instant. It's yeah, it's amazing for art directing.
Yeah, so much easier to work with. Like I remember when Blender got the live preview of rendering with cycles, and yeah, and then later Eevee came.
Yeah.
So a lot of things like that. It really changes the perspective, and like the ease of work and the iterations
Hmm.
is really so much better. I wanted to ask you about Bomper Studio, like because some people say that when you run a studio and you pass that 10-year mark, you can consider it a success. It is a it is a success. You already passed the 10 years. What's your vision for the next 10 years? Like, are you hungry for like making the studio super big, or like do you enjoy making it small and more like focused on very specific tasks?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know how the studios run where they're like thousands of people. Just blows my mind, honestly. I don't know how people do that. That is crazy. Part of me wants to stay smaller because we can be more agile. We can, you have I had there was a really good talk a couple of nights back. Saw Nora Twomey from Cartoon Saloon. So it's an Irish studio. They do amazing work, and she was saying that they got really successful, got really big, and got to a point where they'd come stretch themselves out so much that they were at the Oscars, and they were, they I think it was for the Book of Kells. They were at the Oscars because they'd been nominated, but they were almost like flat broke. They had no money. They were like really stretched, and they were given this kind of almost like fake, like, oh yeah, everything's amazing, everything's great, but underneath the surface, it was just a struggle. It's that kind of swan analogy where it's like nice and kind of gentle on the seat, on the top, and then underneath is kicking as hard as possible. And I think, yeah, it's getting that balance. That balance is really hard. We've had a really tough sort of 12 months. The industry has definitely slowed down, but then you get worried, like, okay, is this something we're doing, and what have we done? Like, is this something we're not doing? Is it? And then when you get to talk to other studios and obviously even other industries, you realize this is not something we've done. It's just the nature of it's just contracted at the minute, and it's obviously there's less work out there. Budgets are a little bit smaller, so it's yeah, it's just getting through those peaks and troughs, and that's where it's been like for the 10 years. Like, we'll have, 1 year it'll just be mega, and you'll have amazing work on. You'll do the best work ever. You'll invest in the studio. So you go, okay, right, we need new machines. We'll try new software. So you spend a lot of money then, and then the next year you might not have great profits because you've invested so much back into the studio, and everything's a learning curve. If you're not learning, then yeah, you're not pushing yourself. Is how I see it. But one thing I'd love to do would be a really high end game cinematic. On the commercial side, I'd love to do that, and then obviously on the long format, the stuff that we have in development on our small slate, getting one of those into production would be a dream as well.
Let's hope for the best. As you mentioned, the times are kind of rough,
Mm.
but hopefully, like the rough times are also kind of a time to learn and adapt. And
Yeah.
yeah, maybe the smaller studios, like it's a hard time for smaller studios, but also like I guess as you mentioned, like you can be more agile. You're not like a big tanker.
Yeah, it's across all industry as well. It's not just ours. Like, I think yesterday, Dyson, who are a huge, obviously they do those vacuum cleaners and they do other things. They put out that they were going to let go of 1,000 people. So that's like, I think it was a third of the UK staff. That's a lot of people. That's an industry. If they're doing that, then then potentially their marketing budgets have dropped. So if they're doing it, and we see these others across the board, obviously games has had a really tough year as well. There's been lots of
Mhm.
layoffs there. Yeah, there's just that, you know, economy contracting at the minute, and you just need to kind of keep an eye on things, and obviously make sure that you can kind of keep some reserves and hold on, and then obviously there's going to be a point where it tips the other way, and then we'll be inundated with work, and hopefully budgets will start to go back up, and it is just those peaks and troughs, and you have to live with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you already kind of like were down or on the brink, and you managed to go through for 10 years. So I'm thinking like
No.
you have already all the training to survive.
Yeah. I don't think any of that matters, though. Honestly, I think you can, like I said, if you can make one decision, and that can pull down a studio, or something happen outside your control. Lots of these things happen. There's big studios like Framestore just shut down in Canada. So
Yeah,
like
Canada.
these things happen, and and the thing is, it seems that people are negative about those companies, and like, oh well, yeah, they've done this because they're going for these tax breaks, or they're moving because they're doing this. But nobody in their right mind would want to shut down a studio. Like, it's not something they go, okay, well, yeah, we'll just shut it down, get rid of it. Like, it doesn't happen like that. Stuff happens behind the scenes that, if a deal doesn't land, or if a client doesn't pay, that, cash flow kills businesses. That's the issue. And I think a lot of people forget that, you have to get work in, and sometimes you have to do work that you don't want to do, or there's it might not be as fulfilling and as exciting to pay the bills. But then obviously sometimes you get stuff in that's, oh my god, it's amazing, we have to work on it, but the budget's terrible, and you have to weigh those up. And that's how it goes, unfortunately, in the industry.
Yeah, and that's like a lesson to learn for the Blender community, I guess. And there's been a lot of like because Blender is free, people consider it to be free and like nothing to do with the money, which is not the case because Blender Foundation also like needs money,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
develop the software. Anyway, like it's all donation based, but people
yes,
are kind of considering it like it's just an act of free will. You can donate or not, but it's really keeping it alive. Like that, some people decide to donate.
yeah. I think lots of the studios are looking at it now, though, because it's the kind of, if you've got 500 artists, and they're all, maybe 400 of those are using Maya, so that's a big software bill a year. That's an annual probably cost of like, what, £1 million or something crazy. So if you can go, okay, well, we completely get rid of that overhead, it's a no-brainer instantly if you saved like £1 million on software. Most studios I've spoken to are looking at it, or they've tried it in various projects. So I'm hoping there that, because that's one of the kind of pitfalls at the minute, why people are not transferring over to. Obviously, there's some technical issues. There's some things with rigs that they're not up to kind of industry standard. But there's just not enough people. Again, like we had with Cinema 4D, there's just not enough of a pool of artists, of talent, that you can go in and go, right, okay, well, we need like 30 freelance animators. You would struggle to get 30 high quality animators, but it's starting to turn though. I've noticed like there's some quality work out there. You're like, okay, and then when you see like made in Blender, you're like, ooh, yeah, let's email this person.
So I guess let's finish it on a positive note for Blender, and I'm hoping for that it's also positive for Bomper Studio and all the Welsh animation world. Thank you again for taking the time to be on the show
No problem. Thank you.
in your busy schedule. Like you mentioned, like, I consider this like a donation for the podcast because some people say time is money, but I'm hoping that you also enjoy the conversation.
I did. I did. It was nice to meet you. It's nice to be interrogated.
Let's hope for the feature animation of yours to be realized, and then maybe we can make like another episode talking about this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we could maybe do something with your dragon. We've done a dragon recently. We did a dragon last year for a dance. So they're a charity that they do breakdancing and hip hop. And they asked us to come up with a dragon to do the dance moves. So it kind of teaches you how to do breakdancing. And we set that up in Unreal, and we did some mocap with them to do the dancing. And yeah, it was amazing to just see this kind of our dragon doing dancing. It's pretty close to yours. I'll send it to you later.
That would be great to see. I'm sort of all into dragons lately. I don't know where it came from, but we have a dragon in Poland, like a dragon from Krakow.
Yeah,
it's like our national dragon, so to speak.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was the national dragon as well.
Yes, dragons are popular in Europe.